Okay. Hi, everybody, and we are the Gospel 116. My name's Amber Vincent.
I'm Tomas.
And for today, we're going to start with our creed, and then we're going to enter into Genesis in our King James Version Holy Bibles, chapter 1, verses 1 through 25. So here's our creed. We, the saints, are the bride of Christ, and we shall guard this book of prophecy with our whole hearts, and anyone who takes away from this book shall be taken out of the book of life and out of the holy city of God. And we will testify these things. In Jesus' name, amen. So, first we urge you all to first of all have your King James Version Bibles ready. Have a pen and have a paper so that you may take notes, because it's important that you take notes and retain this information. So, Genesis is talking about the creation of heaven and earth. Now, let's go to chapter 1, verse 1 of the text. And it reads, "In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth." Verse 2, "And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters." Now, I'm going to let Tomas explain this text, and then I'm going to go over the English composition of this text.
In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. Now, in this first verse, it already said God created, which means if you go to John 1:1, it says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And everything was made by Him and for Him." So, in the very beginning, God created. And when He created, He became what? The Father. So then, 2, and it says, "And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters." Now, "and" is a conjunction, which means between when God created and the earth was form and void, there's a gap between that time. Something had to happen. So between that time, what happened between that time? Something is missing.
Now, we're going to go over the English composition of this entire text. Now, let's take a close look at verse 1 and 2. It says, "In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth," period. And that's a sign of ending something. Verse 2, "And." Now, "and," of course, is a conjunction, and it also has different meanings as well depending on the context of the sentence and how it is set up. Now, "and," we all know, is a conjunction meaning also, and it also can mean then. Now, the word "then" means immediately or soon afterward, or next in order of place. Now, given that verse 1, the end of verse 1, meaning earth, and there's a period, and verse 2 begins with "and," the special thing that we see there, the most significant thing we see there, is that the sentence starts with "and" and the A is capitalized. And preceding that "and" is a period. So that means soon afterward, or next in order of place. So verse 2, next in order of place, or "and, the earth was without form, comma." Now this is where the original conjunction "and," which is lowercase after "without form" in verse 2, means also. So it says, verse 2, to break it down. Next in order of place, the earth was without form, comma, also void. And then you have a semicolon, which means "and" also. It means "and." But you can also leave the "and" out if you do not use the word, if you do use the semicolon. So that means it's self-explanatory. So, And the earth was out without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. Period. And it also begins with and. Then after that, the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. So it speaks for itself.
So the question is, what happened between that time between God created and the earth being void and without form? Now, we all heard of the destruction of the dinosaurs, and an asteroid fell from the sky and wiped them all out. And when the asteroid hit, all the volcanoes explode and it sent gases into the sky, which covered the whole entire sky. And when the sun was blocked out, it the earth started to get colder, and it went into an ice age.
So, verses 3 through 10, it explains the restoration of earth and how God did it. So when we go into verses 3 through 10, it says, "And God said, let there be light. And there was light." Verse 4, "And God saw the light, comma, that it was good, colon. And God divided the light from the darkness." So he saw the light, and it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. Verse 5, "And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day." Verse 6, "And God said, comma, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters." Now, in verse 6, he uses the word firmament. In the dictionary, it means a vault, a space, a passage, or enclosed chamber. It separates something. "And God said, comma, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters." So in the midst of the waters, let it divide the waters. So in the process of his reformation of the earth, restoration of the earth, he divides the waters from the waters that you find in the sky, like rain that's condensed into the clouds, and the bodies of waters, the atmosphere from the bodies of waters. Verse 7, "And God made the firmament," which is the vault, "and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so."
And God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day.
So, in verse 7 through 8, it basically explains what I just told you. "And God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above." So he separated the atmospheric realm from part of earth from the waters, the bodies of waters, like the Pacific Ocean, from the clouds that have water condensed into it to form clouds. So we continue.
9. And God said, let the waters under the heaven be gathered together under one place, and let dry land appear, and it was so. Now, that's funny, because when it says, and God said, let the waters under the heaven be gathered together under one place, and let dry land appear. Now, if you read down from verse 3 to 10, God has not created anything. All he was doing was restoring the earth back to his original form. Because remember, it was void and without form. Something, like I said, something had to happen that caused it to be that way. Something must have hit that earth so hard that it caused the earth to go into utter darkness. You see, and then, like I said, we was talking about the ice age. The earth was pretty much a block of ice. Everything was dead in it. There's nothing living. You see, so God right now is restoring the earth back to its form. So that when God said, "Let there be light," when there was light, the ice began to melt. And when the ice melt, the earth was pretty much covered in water. And that's the reason why God started using firmaments to separate the the sky and the waters. And then he used the firmaments to separate each other. So God is right now restoring the atmosphere, because remember, everything was destroyed. There was nothing. Okay?
He also says in verse 9 when he read, "And God said, Let the waters under the heaven be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear. And
Right.
it was so. The land was not created, it appeared."
It was already there. Which means, if he said dry land appear, it means that it was underneath the water. Which means what? It was wet. You see, just like I said, when God said, "Let there be light," the ice began to melt. So the dry land was actually underneath the water. It was already there. Because remember, in verse 1, it says, "In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth." So the earth was already there. Let's go to verse 11. And God said, "Let the earth bring forth grass, and the herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit, and after his kind, whose seeds it's in itself, upon the earth." And it was so. So of course, what happened was, when the land appeared, what's going to happen? It's going to get that nourishment from the water and from the sun, and then guess what? Grass is going to appear. It's only common sense. 12. And the herb brought forth grass, an herb yielding seed after his kind, and tree yielding fruit, whose seed was in itself after his kind, and God saw that it was good. So now we're seeing the herb being restored back to its original form, because that's what God is doing. You see, the combination of sun and water brought forth what? The grass. And then it brought forth trees yielding fruit, another trees yielding after its own kind. 13. And the evening and the morning were the third day. So God has not created nothing. It's already been there. God is just restoring it back to its original form. 14. And God said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years." Now, right now, what God is doing, He's creating our months. And there's 12 months in what? 1 year.
And he also says, "Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night." What is he talking about? He uses heaven to describe the lights that are in the firmament. Now, where would the lights be? To divide the day from the night. You have the sun and you have the moon. Where are those located? They're located in space. So he considers that firmament of the heaven, of that particular heaven. And let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. Verse 15.
So what we got now, we got astrology. Right? You could look, right now, we could go in a telescope and we could look into the sky and we could tell, different signs. Like you have Libra, you have Pisces, you have Leo. Okay? And then you could judge, you could study the stars, and you could tell different seasons. Like, for example, you have winter, you have summer, you have spring. You see, and that's why God said He set firmaments. So when with every time in the year, you will know when a different season is coming, because what? The temperature changes, and you can tell by the trees, because the trees begin to what? The leaves begin to fall off.
Mm-hmm. 15.
And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, and it was so. You got the sun, you got the stars, you got the moon. 16. And God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also.
Now, what is he
17.
talking about? Okay, he's talking about the greater light for the day, which is sun, and the lesser light to rule the night, which is the moon.
Mm-hmm.
And the stars also.
Yep. And 17. And God said, let them, God set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth. 18. And to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. 19. And the evening and the morning were the fourth day. So again, I said, God ain't create nothing yet. Everything was there. It was already there. 20. And God said, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creatures that have life. Now, let the water bring forth abundantly the moving creatures that had life. Had life. Had is past tense. So that means there was creatures there before, prehistoric times. And they what? They had life. So they were there before. Again, God is restoring life onto the earth. And the fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of the heaven. Now, 21. And God created great whales, and every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly. Now, this is even creatures before. Right? After their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind, and God saw that it was good. 22. And God blessed them, saying, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters in the seas, and let fowl multiply in the earth. 23. And the evening and the morning were the fifth day. So what did God created so far?
Created the heaven and the earth, and he created great whales.
So what does that tell us? What do we learn about sharks? It says sharks was here before what? They was in what? Prehistoric times. They existed. They're right now creatures that scientists have not even found yet. That's still in the earth. You see? So God just brought forth things. You see, no creature can live without light. It's very that simple. It's that simple. So the earth was just a block of ice. And when God said, let there be light, boom. The ice began to melt. And then when the waters became a certain temperature, creatures started moving again. And then when he started creating firmaments, it started separating things. So then now we got the Pacific, the Atlantic Ocean, you have the Indian Ocean, then you have lakes, you have rivers, so it separated the saltwater creatures from the freshwater creatures. And you see, and those creatures that was there from prehistoric times are still existing to the earth this day. We just haven't found them yet. 22. And God blessed them, saying, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters in the seas, and let fowls multiply in the earth. 23. And the evening and the morning were the fifth day. 24. And God said, let the earth bring forth the living creatures after his kind, cattle, creeping things, and beasts of the earth after his kind. And it was so. And God made the beasts of the earth after his kind, and cattle after their kind, and everything that creepeth upon the earth after his kind. And God saw that it was good. Now we're going to stop there. Before we get into the creation of man, we're going to go back into the beginning when God created heaven and the earth. And we're going to study that gap between verse 1 and verse 2. Let's go to Ezekiel
28, 13. Ezekiel 28, 13 through 15.
Now, before you read, we have to understand there's a prehistoric time. Again, science proves God's word. Okay? That's why it has evidence in the earth that creatures lived here before. Their bones. The dinosaurs. We know there was a prehistoric time. We know that there was someone that was here before us. And that's what we're going to look into right now. And read.
Ezekiel 28, 13. Thou hast been in Eden, the garden of God. Every precious stone was thy covering.
Who are they talking about? Continue to read.
The sardius, topaz, and the diamond, the beryl, the onyx, and the jasper, the sapphire, the emerald, and the carbuncle, and gold. The workmanship of thy tabrets and of thy pipes was prepared in thee in the day that thou wast created.
Who was created? We know that there are what? Fallen angels. And who was the leader of those fallen angels? The leader of the rebellion against God. Lucifer. Now, Lucifer was the most beautiful thing that God has created, or what he thought that what actually was in that time. Lucifer had every gem known and unknown to man in his garment, and then he had pipes built within him. So he was beautiful, and when he flew, when the wind blew, it was just music, the most beautiful music that you ever heard. So he was precious. Lucifer also means the light bearer. Lucifer was known as the anointed cherubim. Now, the cherubim has 4 wings. It's a type of angel. They have 4 wings and 4 faces. The face of a man, the face of an eagle, the face of a lion, and the face of an ox. And they have hoof-like feet, right? And they could stand between about 10, 15 feet tall. You know, they're very big creatures, very powerful. They're actually in the highest heaven, where God is, where God exists.
Okay. Ezekiel 28, verse 14. Thou art the anointed cherub that covereth, and I have set thee so. Thou wast upon the holy mountain of God. Thou hast walked up and down in the midst of the stones of fire. Thou wast perfect in thy ways from the day that thou wast created, till iniquity was found in thee.
Iniquity. So Lucifer, why did he fall? God found iniquity in him. What was this iniquity that God was talking about? He greed. He wanted more. He wanted God's position. He didn't just want to be like God. He wanted to be God.
And as we continue, verse 16 says, by the multitude of thy merchandise, they have filled the midst of thee with violence, and thou hast sinned. Therefore, I will cast thee as profane out of the mountain of God, and I will destroy thee, O covering cherub, from the midst of the stones of fire. 17. Thine heart was lifted up because of thy beauty. Thou hast corrupted thy wisdom by reason of thy brightness. I will cast thee to the ground. I will lay thee before kings, that they may behold thee. 18. Thou hast defiled thy sanctuaries by the multitude of thine iniquities, by the iniquity of thy traffic. Therefore will I bring forth a fire from the midst of thee. It shall devour thee, and I will bring thee to ashes upon the earth, in the sight of all them that behold thee.
19.
19. All they that know thee among the people shall be astonished at thee. Thou shalt be a terror, and never shalt thou be any more.
Okay. Now, what did it say? It said when he came down, a fire shall come from the midst of him. So when he was kicked out of heaven and he fell, he hit the earth so hard, it sent the earth into shock. And fire come from the midst of him. And all those that was in the earth, behold his fall, and all those that fall with him. And when he hit the earth, it sent it into shock. So you gotta remember something. There was a continuous effect that came from this. Now, what happens when an asteroid hits the earth or a meteor that hits the earth? Depending on the size and the weight and the speed, if when it hits the earth, it could actually what? Destroy the whole entire earth. It's like setting off about 20 nuclear bombs. And when it hit the earth, it caused what? A chain reaction. Volcanoes begin to erupt. And when these volcanoes, the ashes filled the sky. And when it filled the sky, it was like chemicals in the sky. And it blocked out the sun. When it blocked out the sun, all those things that was in the earth died. Because why? Life needs light. Without the light, they all died. And then guess what? When the sun was blocked out, the earth began to get colder and colder. And it froze. Now we're going to go to Isaiah 14, 12 through 15.
Isaiah 14, 12. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? 13. For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. 14. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. 15. Yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit. 16. That they see thee shall narrowly look upon thee, and consider thee, saying, Is this the man that made the earth to tremble, that did shake kingdoms? 17. That made the world as a wilderness, and destroyed the cities thereof, that opened not the house of his prisoners. 18. All the kings of the nations, even all of them, lie in glory, every one in his own house. 19. But thou art cast out of thy grave like an abominable branch, and as the raiment of those that are slain, thrust through with a sword, that go down to the stones of the pit, as a carcass trodden under feet.
Okay. Now, again, is explaining, Isaiah is prophesying to them about Lucifer, about the fall of Lucifer. Okay, the anointed cherub. He went up to exalt himself like the Most High. You see, he was trying to steal the very logos of God, the name of God. Because the name is the power. The name is what holds. Is the name is what everything is the whole heaven. The name is the power. Is named after the whole entire heaven. Again, what is his name? The only name that is given in the Bible for where we might be saved is the name Jesus. But you see, he did not have that knowledge. You see, with every level of angel, they had a certain amount of knowledge that God reveals to them. Cherubims were limited. Okay? So he did not have that knowledge. So he was thinking that, hey, I got most of God's army and I could go and I could take over heaven. You see? And then that's when he ran into Michael. Go to Revelations 12, 7 through 9.
Revelations 12, verse 7. And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon. And the dragon fought and his angels. 8. And prevailed not, neither was their place found any more in heaven.
Stop right there. So God kicked them out. Michael, Jehovah Nissi, the God that protects, fought against the devil and his angels and kicked them out of heaven, and they all fell to the earth. 9.
9. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent, called the devil and Satan, which the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him.
Okay. So again, him and his angels was cast into the earth. And they lost their glory. You see? So we're going to go back to Genesis chapter 1. And it says, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. So the gap that is missing is the celestial wall. The wall between Michael, Jehovah Nissi, and the dragon, that old serpent, Lucifer, and his angels. And they fell to the earth and sent it into utter darkness. And then it says, and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. So God saw this, and he was like, this destruction caused death. It caused the earth to be void, and it had no form. There was no life. Everything was wiped out. It was a frozen block of ice. Now we're going to continue to verse 26
in our next video. But we are the Gospel 116, and stay tuned for our next video and enjoy this one. If you have any inquiries, please email us at gospel116@yahoo.com. Also, check out our Facebook page, the Gospel 116, and like.
Thank you, and you all have a blessed and wonderful evening.
Bye. Bye-bye.